everyone, I'm Amy from Honest and Full, and today I'm going to share with you advantages and lessons learned about being a vegetarian. This is a continuation of my video series and blog post series on being a vegetarian. So part one, my story, vegetarian, why I became one, why I like it. And this one is advantages, valuable lessons. The third one will be tips and tricks for being a vegetarian. So let's dive in. Advantages. I have 3 advantages and 3 lessons learned. I'm going to try and go through them fast. Advantage 1, you are saving the planet. Advantage 2, you are saving your health. And advantage 3, you are saving money. See, this is why I say being a vegetarian is like my superpower, because you're saving all this stuff all the time. Now let me go in a little more detail on all of them. Saving the planet. When I became vegetarian, I did research on how to be a healthy vegetarian. And I came across this fact that cows' burps and farts and poops were ruining our environment. And I was like, what? I had no idea. So over the years, I've learned a lot more. I've watched videos, I've done research, but I have learned that cows, basically animals that have 4 stomachs, but we produce so many cows and raise so many cows that they're the largest contributor. But livestock are the biggest contributor of methane gas to the environment. So methane gas is more pollutive to the greenhouse gases and the environment than carbon monoxide. Carbon monoxide is due to transportation is 13% of global greenhouse gas emissions, where livestock methane gas emissions are 51% of overall greenhouse gas emissions. 51%, isn't that crazy? Another thing, the way it harms the environment is, if you think about it, we grow so much livestock in the US and beyond, and they have to eat something, right? Some do graze the fields and eat the grass, and that in itself takes a lot of land for them to be able to have enough grass to graze to eat, because cows eat a lot. But most of them are in a stockyard and they eat whatever is fed to them. So it's a grain mix, it's corn, soy, whatever is mixed together. They eat so much of that we continually have to clear land to grow new crops to be able to get enough of that grain feed to feed the cattle. 91% of current Amazon rainforest destruction is due to animal agriculture, cutting away the rainforest to be able to grow crops, to be able to feed the massive amount of meat that we as a world, specifically as a country in America, consume. That's crazy. It is crazy. So I encourage you to do more research on this. A lot of what I just quoted is from a film and a documentary series called Cowspiracy. So go to their website, Cowspiracy. You can research stuff there. They do have their video on Netflix. Food Inc. is another one I watched initially when I became a vegetarian. Now, I will just give a little caveat. Being a vegetarian is not perfect for the environment. There's a whole organic debate. There's a whole other things. But it's a huge step in the right direction. So I encourage you to look into that, to research, to see if you're convinced or convicted to be a vegetarian just due to that. So advantage number 2 of being a vegetarian is that you are saving your health. I have met unhealthy vegetarians. It's not impossible. I mean, I could eat cheese pizza and pasta and mac and cheese and donuts and sugary drinks and ice cream and all these other things and be vegetarian, but that's not healthy. But a lot of vegetarians, when they take meat out of their diet, they are putting in more fibrous foods, beans, lentils, grains, lots more vegetables and fruit. All of that is going in place of meat. Now, this is evidence-based research has shown, ready for this, that vegetarians have lower cholesterol, lower blood pressure, lower rates of type 2 diabetes, lower overall cancer rates, lower risk of chronic disease, lower risk of dying from heart disease, and lower rates of obesity. That's a lot of lower things of major health concerns. So for that alone, it's worth thinking about. You could give up bacon if you really wanted to. If you were really determined, you could. I have. There's other non-research health things. Like I definitely lost a little weight when I became vegetarian. I also have more energy and I also slept better. I haven't found much research on vegetarian sleep habits. I haven't looked that much though. The other thing is hormone regulation. So watch my earlier video. That was why I became vegetarian, to try and regulate my hormones. It's still an experiment. Some doctors would say that's crazy. Others would say there's actually some validity to that. So for me, it was a big experiment, one that I fell in love with and find that I thrive off of. And so I've stuck with it. So that's lesson number 2, or advantage number 2. Advantage number 3 is you are saving money. Get this, in 2021, the price of meat went up like everything in the pandemic, but the average price of a pound of ground beef in 2021 was like $4.72 or something like that. 72, 76. Anyway, the cost of a bag of dried black beans is the exact same price. It's like $4.78. So let's imagine it's Taco Tuesday and you're a meat eater. You want your ground beef tacos. You use a pound of ground beef to make your tacos. At minimum, your tacos are costing $4.76, 72 cents. If you're a meat eater, for me, or vegetarian, for me, I do black beans in my tacos all the time. I love black beans. So canned are going to cost a little more. A can of black beans is going to cost you 79 cents maybe a little more if you get the organic kind. So that alone, you're spending 79 cents. But if you go the dry route and get dry beans and make them in the Instant Pot, look for my black bean Instant Pot recipe, it's delicious. A 4-pound bag is going to last you at least 16 nights of Taco Tuesdays. That is, you're paying the same price for 16 meals versus just one. That is just one example of many more on being a vegetarian, which is on how it saves you money. Crazy. Now, so those were the advantages. Lots of savings, lots of superhero powers. Now, lessons. These are lessons that I've learned. They're valuable to me. Someone else might have different lessons, but here are mine. A lesson, I learned to get creative with cooking. Growing up in an American family, we had a meat, a starch, and a vegetable on the dinner plate. That was our dinner plate. As a vegetarian, you can't just take out the meat and substitute something else. It just doesn't work. It doesn't work that well that way. So instead, I learned to do a lot of one-pot meals. I've learned to use a lot of spices and cook a lot of international foods. Just think, Italian, you can make a lot of pasta, can be without meat and is delicious as vegetarian. I love Mexican food. There's a ton of options in Mexican food for vegetarianism, and there's really good flavor there. Middle Eastern food is so delicious. Falafel and hummus and tahini and tabbouleh and all these other delicious flavored things. I love it. It's so good. So spices, one-pot meals, international cuisine is delicious. I challenge and encourage you to get creative and try it. I think that is one of the biggest challenges that I hear people talk about is how to start to cook vegetarian, how to get out of that mindset of needing the starch, the meat, the vegetables on the dinner plate. So shake it all up, get creative, you can do it. So that's a big lesson. Another lesson I've learned, and this is just fascinating to me, is that God's original intent, his original design, was for us to be vegetarians. In the Bible, the very beginning is the book of Genesis. In the book of Genesis is the creation story where we learn how God created the earth and God created all living things. And in there, in chapter 1, there is a section where God gives Adam every plant and every seed-bearing and fruit-bearing tree for food. And then to all of the animals of the earth, those on the ground, in the sky, in the water, I give the same. Every plant for food. So that's what we were given. That was what the intent was to eat. It wasn't until way after the fall that meat started being consumed. Now, the fall is after sin entered the world. So in Genesis 3, Adam and Eve messed up. They disobeyed God. Everything went from being really perfect to messed up. And that's the world we live in now, where everything is messed up and God is constantly seeking to redeem it. In the fall, the ground was cursed. If you look at it, it's in Genesis 3, God curses the ground and Adam is now going to have to toil hard to be able to get fruit and life and food out of the ground. So we went from this lush green garden where everything was just given to you for food. It was like Candyland, to toil and agony in the ground to get food. So that was the first challenge with the land. And then in Genesis 9, after the flood and Noah, God specifically says, fine, now you can eat meat. And it's not a new, great, now I want you to eat meat. It's fine. The earth is struggling, everything's messed up anyway, the ground is hard to work from, you can now eat meat. That's a story in the Bible of vegetarianism, which is just fascinating to me, that we were created. And do you know that Noah, who was vegetarian, lived to be like 950 years old as a vegetarian? I'm telling you, saving your health as a vegetarian. Anyway, that's a lesson I've learned. The third lesson I've learned is to be hospitable and receptive. This was a struggle for me when I first became a vegetarian. I felt uncomfortable, going to people's homes for meals because I had to be like, oh, I'm vegetarian now. And they're like, what? I don't know what to make, yada, yada. So I've learned over the years, it's been over 12 years, so I've learned that if I'm invited over somewhere or if we're talking about getting together for a meal with someone, I don't try to hide it. I up front will say, my family's vegetarian, we would love to bring something to contribute to the meal. I'm happy to help you think through, recipes, or if we're going out to eat, I'm happy to help research restaurants. That would be good for us. I'll check out a few menus. I try to go above and beyond just to be hospitable on that so the burden isn't on someone else. And I always make sure if I'm going to like a potluck or, a group meal where I'm supposed to bring something, that I bring like a substantial vegetarian side. So I bring a hearty salad that I know I can eat, or a pasta salad, or a point on like offering hospitality. I would encourage you to always ask if there's any dietary restrictions, whether you yourself are vegetarian or not. I think to ask other people, if they're coming over, or if you work with an organization or at a church and you're offering a community meal, to ask if there's dietary restrictions. It gives someone space to be able to say, oh, I'm dairy-free, or I have a gluten allergy or intolerance, or I'm vegetarian, and then you can plan accordingly. If you don't get to ask that, or you're not sure what people are, I always, like this fall, we had college students over for Friendsgiving, right around Thanksgiving, and I made a completely vegetarian Friendsgiving. I had gluten-free pumpkin pie and regular pumpkin pie. I had some dairy-free options. I tried to think about every dietary restriction, and some people were so blessed. One young woman who hasn't been able to eat pumpkin pie, she was like, you have a gluten-free pumpkin pie. She was so excited and so grateful for that. So to me, that's just something that we can do to be hospitable and receive others. It's something, yes, it can be a burden to us, but I'd rather have it be a burden to me than a burden to the person who's coming. My last point on this is be receptive to someone else's hospitality. So if you're going to someone's house and they're cooking you veggie burgers, but they're cooking everyone else meat burgers, you can have a very different strong opinion on this, but for me, I am okay if it's cooked on the same grill, if it's flipped with the same burger or the same flipper. I don't want to eat the meat. I'm okay if my veggie burger has been touched with a little meat juice. It's not going to kill me. I won't do that at home, but I am fine that at someone else's house. I try not to be accusatory. I try to ask. I try to receive. I try to eat what I can. So that's my encouragement to you, to not let dietary restrictions like vegetarian or gluten-free or dairy-free or anything else I can't think of, to let that hold you back, but to be intentional on how you host people, be intentional on how you receive an invitation. So those are the lessons I've learned. Those are the tips and tricks. Those are the advantages to being a vegetarian. I hope it is encouraging. I hope it is inspiring. And I hope it's challenging for you. So try it. Go to the grocery store, plan out an all-vegetarian menu, and see if you save money. Try being a vegetarian for a month and see if you lose a few pounds or if you have better energy. Experiment with it. Try it. Save the environment. Be a superhero. Anyway, I could go on and on. I clearly love it. I hope this is helpful. I hope it's encouraging, and I hope to see you back again. Thanks for stopping by.